This video is brought to you by Surfshark. Stick around to hear more about the discount they are providing to the entire upper echelon community. No beating around the bush. How on earth is it possible that a single domain name effectively saved the internet, and what in the world could even require such a thing? That's the question we're answering today, but it's a complicated question to answer because it's not just about computer viruses or malware kill switches, it's about global cyber weapons, pseudo-anonymous hacker collectives, and government agencies. Sounds like a conspiracy, right? Obviously. But it's not, and the reality, at least to me, is fascinating. What is Eternal Blue? That question is quite obviously pivotal for today, but that is a question with a lot of implications. Eternal Blue, according to the Hyper Security Encyclopedia, as well as pretty much every other reputable source you will come across, is what's called a zero-day exploit that is widely believed to have been developed by the NSA, otherwise known as the National Security Agency of the United States of America. Now, a certain level of explanation is required here, especially since my prior video about the global cyberwar was not as thorough as it likely should have been. Eternal Blue is an exploit targeting the Windows operating system, likely developed by the NSA as an offensive tactic in their ongoing struggle against threat actors all around the world. More precisely, the NSA and other connected agencies participating in the deployment or development of cyber weaponry are almost totally fixated on developing offensive capabilities rather than defensive ones. In simplest terms possible, America wants to carry the biggest digital stick, and that works well, up to a point. However, in the case of Eternal Blue, things derailed rather quickly when an organization known as the Shadow Brokers, heck of a name I know, managed to begin leaking government-funded cyber weaponry to the public. Setting aside precisely how the Shadow Brokers, whoever they are, managed to obtain access to United States cyber weaponry developed by the NSA, some suspect that they gained access from an APT named Equation Group, widely believed to be directly associated with the NSA themselves, and also one of the most sophisticated cyber warfare collectives in the world, while others maintain that only through Equation Group did the Shadow Brokers manage to get access to something called TAO, which is suspected to be a direct arm of the NSA itself, known more precisely as the Tailored Access Operations Unit. Still others believe that this was an act of war funded by Russia. I can't say for certain, but suffice it to say, theories abound. Regardless of how, regardless of why, the simple reality is this. On August 13th, 2016, the Shadow Brokers published an auction. This auction, unbeknownst to the public at the time, contained government-level cyber infiltration tools and came with a message. Quote, "Attention government sponsors of cyber warfare and those who profit from it. How much you pay for enemies' cyber weapons, not malware you find in networks, both sides, RAT plus LP, full state-sponsor toolset. We find cyber weapons made by creators of Stuxnet, Dooku, Flame. Kaspersky calls Equation Group. We follow Equation Group traffic. We find Equation Group source range. We hack Equation Group. We find many Equation Group cyber weapons. You see pictures. We give you some Equation Group files free, you see. This is good proof, no? You enjoy. You break many things. You find many intrusions. You write many words. But not all. We are auction the best files." End quote. This message, despite the broken English, or perhaps even enhanced by it, is chilling, especially in hindsight, as it references things like Stuxnet, which is a cyber weapon deployed against Iran, which successfully undercut their entire nuclear program by infiltrating and reprogramming the centrifuge control systems in a deliberate and highly sophisticated act of international sabotage. Thinking back, any claim that similar exploits would be released should have been terrifying. Okay, before continuing on, it's time for me to promote a product, get some money, and offer all of you watching a hefty discount in the process on Surfshark. Surfshark is a VPN, virtual private network, and VPNs protect you from a bunch of things. There are certain types of phishing attacks, malware, DNS tunneling, DDoS attacks, you name it, and also shields you to a degree from the inevitable and constant data harvesting, as well as tracking from big tech companies. For those more focused on raw entertainment value, Surfshark can unlock additional content on streaming websites like Netflix, for example. It has to do with licensing agreements. I won't bore everyone with a technical explanation here. Simply change your region and enjoy increased options in your video content streaming library. Surfshark can get you around regional censorship, such as government restrictions on websites, which is a thing nowadays, and also offers encryption, IP protection, or modification, and so much more. That's not even the end. Surfshark has a multitude of uses for a multitude of problems, but for the sake of time, all I have to say is that if you click the link down below right now using promo code Echelon, you can get 83% off and 3 full months free. Again, that's promo code Echelon for 83% off and 3 entire months for free if you click the link down below in the description today. Big thank you to Surfshark for sponsoring the channel. Further messages released by the Shadow Brokers detailed precisely how to engage with their auction, but from what it appears, limited engagement, as a result of mass skepticism perhaps, kept the bidding relatively low. It wasn't until the end of October 2016 that things really started to heat up, when the shadow brokers published another message, their sixth total correspondence with the outside world at the time, that read as follows. Quote, "The shadow brokers is trying auction, people's no like. The shadow brokers is trying crowdfunding, people's is no liking. Now the shadow brokers is trying direct sales. Be checking out list of wares. If you like, you email the shadow brokers with name of wares you want to make purchase. The shadow brokers is emailing you back Bitcoin address. You make payment. The shadow broker is emailing you link plus decryption password. If not liking this transaction method, you finding the shadow brokers on underground marketplaces and making transaction with escrow. Files, as always, being signed." End quote. This particular message finally began to cause adequate concern. Despite the lack of executable files contained, the most recent request by the shadow brokers to find willing buyers came with around 60 unique folders, complete with screenshots of the tool's file structure and pertinent names. Still possibly fake, yes, or some kind of hoax, but the pressure was mounting that this unknown person or persons, group, etc. had actually managed to obtain classified cyber weaponry and might actually be preparing to sell or disperse it. April 8th, 2017. Everything finally came to a head. The shadow brokers on this particular day released a post on the platform called Medium, which served as a call out towards then President Donald Trump. Politics aside, this Medium post contained, among many other things, a conclusory paragraph that reads as follows. Quote, "Mr. President Trump, the shadow brokers sincerely is hoping you are being the real deal and that you received this as constructive criticism toward MAGA. Some Americans consider or may be considering the shadow brokers traitors. We disagreeing. We view this as keeping our oath to protect and defend against enemies foreign and domestic. The shadow brokers wishes we could be doing more, but revolutions/civil wars taking money, time, and people. The shadow brokers is having little of each as our auction was an apparent failure. Be considering this our form of protest. The password for the EQGRP auction files is CRDJ, quote, parenthetical, semicolon, VA period star, NDL or I, NZB9M, question mark at K2, close parenthetical, pound sign, greater than DEB7MN, end quote. That string of numbers, letters, and symbols unleashed hell. This password opened access to what were, unfortunately, very real cyber weapons obtained by the shadow brokers. Among them, Eternal Blue. And roughly 1 month later, the damage started. May 12th, 2017 at precisely 7:44 UTC. A novel worm built around Eternal Blue hits the market and begins encrypting computers. Victim computers. Classified as crypto ransomware, WannaCry leveraged the NSA's now leaked cyber weapon to infiltrate Windows computers, encrypt them, and demand payment in the form of Bitcoin. Funnily enough, Windows themselves were already aware of the exploit, having released an operating system update about a month prior, which supposedly closed the hole. In reality, this operating system update did patch the exploit that made Eternal Blue even possible, and functionally stopped the malware in its tracks, but a tremendous number of operating systems at a corporate, government, and civilian level as well were as of yet unsecured. How many times have we, all of us watching this, or myself, deliberately postponed an update? How many times have companies held on to outdated operating system licenses to cut down on individual cost? And how many systems in the world to this very day still run unsecured Windows operating system versions? Answer: a lot of them. This novel malware strain, colloquially dubbed WannaCry, began to encrypt systems and spread itself, relying on SMB port vulnerabilities to infect additional networked devices. The exact rate at which the malware managed to spread itself remains largely unknown, other than a consensus that hundreds of thousands of individual devices were infected within mere hours. An estimated 200 to 300,000 computers were encrypted across 150 countries. Entire hospital systems, corporate databases, infrastructure, critical infrastructure, electricity boards, banks, shipping companies, anything running a slightly outdated Windows operating system was vulnerable, and the damage was beginning to spiral out of control. Luckily, as we can obviously surmise from the title itself, there was a solution. Embedded deep down in the malware's code was a kill switch. WannaCry, whether it be to mitigate reverse engineering or some sort of ultimate failsafe, who knows, would call out to a specific domain name before initiating its ransomware payload. That domain? Well, it's blocked locally now by most ISPs and security service providers, but when first set loose, it pointed here. A string of gibberish, to be sure, a complicated and unnecessary domain, one would think, but if the ransomware was unable to access it or call to it, the attack began. Discovering this relatively quickly, on the same day to be precise, just a few hours after its immediate exponential and viral spread had begun, a researcher named Marcus Hutchins made the discovery and proceeded to register the domain. In preparation for this video, I actually reached out to Marcus directly, hoping to chat with him on the subject, or rather, I commented on a YouTube video, and I would still be very much interested to do so. However, I was unable to make contact, and he has also migrated away from Twitter in particular, completely, which serves as one of the main outreach channels that I myself use. Regardless, Marcus Hutchins decided to register within just a few hours the kill switch domain, effectively paralyzing the WannaCry malware attack. To be clear, it was not destroyed, merely forced into a sort of docile holding pattern, if you will, where it never triggered its encryption payload, meaning that within hours, a worldwide cyber attack that was successfully crippling entire portions of critical infrastructure in major countries had been shut down. The kill switch prevented already infected computers from becoming encrypted, but if, for any reason, the domain itself, the kill switch domain, went down, the carnage would inevitably begin again. So many systems at the time were unprotected, and so many pieces of our internet foundation were susceptible. This malware had the potential to deliver world-altering consequences, if not for the speedy actions of Marcus Hutchins and similar dedicated researchers who protect people like you and me from dangers beyond our comprehension. For years after 2017, WannaCry continued to spread. Inert, in a way, defanged, one could say, but out in the wilds nonetheless, waiting for an opportunity to strike again. Many tries were made to bring down this kill switch domain. DDoS attacks, infiltration tactics by foreign actors, who knows, you name it, it happened. But over time, security systems were able to compensate. Operating systems were updated, and WannaCry faded into memory as something that almost destroyed the modern world, but didn't. Losses were impossible to precisely determine, but ranged in estimate from a few $100 million to $4.5 billion of damage in just a few hours. As just a single example, and keep in mind there are many, many more. Again, 150 countries, 300,000 individual systems, right, were encrypted by this. But just one single example, encrypting hospital systems in the UK caused 19,000 appointments to be cancelled or pushed back, meaning that cancer screenings or infectious disease diagnostics were postponed, leading to an unknown amount of human collateral damage. $10.96. That's the price that Marcus Hutchins paid to prevent tens of billions of dollars in damage or more and stave off world-shaping digital consequences. Since then, researchers have made great strides in combating these types of attacks, but to this very day, the ability for malicious code to infiltrate and destroy consistently outpaces preemptive efforts to stop it. Unlike more traditional cyber infiltrations that rely typically on social engineering, I have a video coming out about that kind of stuff very soon, or oftentimes human error, that's a big one, WannaCry and Eternal Blue were a self-perpetuating internet disease. Once infected, your system was then a danger to every other online device in its network, regardless of what you did, with an agency-developed, nation-level cyber weapon at its core. Rightfully appalled by this, Microsoft President and Chief Legal Officer Brad Smith said, quote, "We need governments to consider the damage to civilians that comes from hoarding these vulnerabilities and the use of these exploits," end quote, lambasting the NSA for their deliberate usage of a zero-day exploit instead of responsibly working to prevent some kind of attack, right? They discovered something like this, and then instead of taking preemptive measures to mitigate damage, they turned it into a devastating weapon. This government mantra, however you want to say it, of carry the biggest digital stick, does not translate well to the world of cyber warfare. And while we may hold the advantage right now, and we may hold it for a long time into the future, who knows, the risk of collateral damage from these government-sponsored, funded, and developed digital nukes, for lack of a better term, is omnipresent. How long is it before another comparable breach occurs? Will we get lucky next time? Will someone find a kill switch fast enough? Or will some new form of cyber weapon be unleashed that cripples the functionality of the entire internet or the infrastructure of complete nations and continents? Who knows? Because as convoluted and dramatic as these words might seem, and I do understand, they seem hyperbolic and over the top, they're really not. We live in a reality now where everything we know, love, understand, and rely on can change or be destroyed in a matter of seconds. Careers, companies, profiles, computers, everything. The best defense? Be aware, be hyper-vigilant, of course, but also come to terms with the now ever-present danger of digital weaponry, directly aimed at you, built by your own government, that is completely safe, so they say, right up until the moment it's not. That's the story of WannaCry, a website that saved the online world, a hero who managed to discover it, thank you to him, and the razor's edge we actually truly do live on. If you want to support, please check out the links down below, merch, social media, the video sponsor, Surfshark of course, etc., but I'll cut it there and stop rambling. Also, please let me know if this type of video is something you want to see more of. I'm currently running an experiment where I'm manufacturing a false identity. I'm engaging with the bot networks, right, that plague social media. Like, I'm doing a lot of these topics right now, and I'm working decently hard on them. So I want to know if this is something that subscribers want to see, because I'm interested in continuing. But yeah, I'll cut it there. As always, thank you all for watching, and have a nice night.